Hello students, welcome to e-learning session. Today we'll start learning microorganisms. So what are microorganisms? Then occurrence of microorganisms, nature of microorganisms, their growth, and then the useful and harmful microorganisms. Let's start. Now use your brain power. What is meant by microorganisms? The living organisms on the earth which are all around us, but we are unable to see them. So such very small living organisms are called as microorganisms. We have to take help of compound microscope to see them. Then there is a second question. Categorize the following organisms into two groups according to the size. So the microorganisms are amoeba, paramecium, euglena, snail, elephant. Means here are different types of organisms. Micro also, and the organisms that we can see through our eyes like elephant, pigeon and worms. So we will categorize them. So amoeba, paramecium and euglena are microorganisms because they are microscopic in size, while snail, elephant, pigeon and worms are bigger animals because we can see them through our eyes. As I told you, microorganisms are present all around us. They are present on our body, they are present inside our body, they are present in the air, in water, on the soil, then on the food and sewage, garbage, etc. So some microorganisms, they live alone, that is solitary, means they live singly. So microorganisms like amoeba, paramecium, they live singly, while some lives in colonies. Some microorganisms lives on the remains of dead plants and animals. So the microorganisms lives in colonies are algae. They very fastly they set up their colonies. Their growth rate is very high. Some fungi like mucor, mold, they also grow in colonies. Okay, students. So these fungi, they live on the remains of dead plants and animals. Now we learned one point that microorganisms are present everywhere. So let's do some activities. First one, just keep a moistened piece of bread or bhakri in a closed box. So what will we see there? See now. So take a bread slice. See, two bread slices are taken here, and make it moist, means add some water, sprinkle some water on them and keep it in a box. Within 2 days this fungus grows on this bread. It is non-greenish fungus. It is, see, this is somewhat grayish in color. So this is a fungus mold. It grows on the bread. So it is a type of microorganisms which grow in a colony or which set up colonies. Now there is second activity. Observe a drop of muddy water or water from stagnant puddle under the microscope. So we in that sample we see variety of microorganisms, and then take a drop of yogurt or buttermilk. So in this drop of buttermilk, when we observe it under microscope, we see bacteria. Which type of bacteria they are? Lactobacillus. Now this is a sample of curd under microscope. So these tiny organisms are bacteria, so they can be seen near that pointer. Students, we cannot see tiny objects. The objects which are smaller than 100 micrometers in size. So we are not able to see through our eyes. So we have to make glass slides of the microorganisms, and we have to observe it under compound microscope. So if a magnification means making the object large. So if a magnification of 1000x proves to be insufficient, then we have to take help of electron microscope. Then what are the sizes of microbes? So the paramecium is about 100 micrometers in size, while bacteria of typhoid is 1 to 3 micrometers in size, while polio virus is very small, it is 28 nanometers in size. So the microbes which measure less than 100 micrometers, so these are the microbes. So even in these minute organisms, their organelles carry out life process within that single cell. So these are the sketches of some microorganisms. So we can get idea about the shapes, and also we can get idea of the names of that microorganisms. So this is Streptococcus bacteria. This is also bacteria. Understood? What is it? It is a Clostridia bacteria. Only the names which I know, that I am telling. So this is a rod shape. It is Streptobacillus bacteria. So this is again bacteria. What is it? It is maybe coccus. What is the name of that bacteria? Coccus. So this is mucor, this is penicillium, it is aspergillus, then this is chlamydomonas, this is pyrovera, this is amoeba, this is paramecium, this is poliovirus. So these are blood cells. Then WBC, it is penicillium. So these are the microorganisms. So the microorganisms that I know, I am telling the name. Understood? Some fungi that grows on the bread like mucor, while some algae that grows in stagnant water, they are multicellular. However, most microorganisms such as bacteria, viruses, they are unicellular, but they have a different cellular structure. In bacteria, the true nucleus is absent. Then membrane bound organelles, they are also absent. Endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex. So such organelles are absent. So such type, and then they are having only plasma membrane, cytoplasm and nucleoid. Okay. So such cells which are not having true nucleus, which are not having membrane bound organelles, are called as prokaryotic cell. So this is a bacterial cell. So that green color flagellum is for the movement of the cell. Inside the cell there is nucleoid where genetic material is in the form of DNA. It is having plasma membrane, that is outermost organelle. Not outermost organelle. Then outside that plasma membrane, cell wall is present. Cytoplasm is filled inside the cell. We can see ribosomes also. Some plasmids are also present. But true nucleus and other organelles like endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, mitochondria, lysosomes, all are absent. So such cell is prokaryotic cell. Growth of microorganisms. Do you know each microorganism needs a specific environment for growth and reproduction? So many microbes, they need oxygen for their growth, while some can grow without oxygen. So some microorganisms survive in extreme and adverse conditions like ocean floors, ice in polar region, hot water springs, etc. How they survive in such odd conditions? How they keep themselves alive in such odd conditions? For this purpose, they form a protective covering around themselves. That covering is very thick and stop their life processes. When favorable condition returns, they come out of that protective covering and continue their life processes. According to the shape and life processes, microorganisms are classified as algae, fungi, protozoa, bacteria, and viruses. Now we'll understand about useful microorganisms. These organisms help us for several processes like fermentation. We'll understand about fermentation first. Now, the chemical process of conversion of one type of carbon compound into another type of carbon compound by the action of microorganisms is called as fermentation. So, during fermentation, heat is generated and carbon dioxide and some gases are released. These gases cause an increase in volume. For example, idli batter, then bread dough. So it rise after fermentation. So this process of fermentation is used for making curd or yogurt from milk, then for producing alcohol from grains and fruits, then for making bread from flour, as well as for the production of acetic acid, citric acid, lactic acid, vitamins and antibiotics. So during fermentation, the conversion of carbon compound from one type to another type takes place, and then due to heat generation, carbon dioxide and some gases are released. That's why the preparations like idli becomes fluffy only while cooking that batter or idlis. What happens? Due to heat, carbon dioxide escapes from that batter, making the idlis fluffy. Like that, bread also become fluffy because of carbon dioxide, which is trapped in that batter, get escaped while baking the bread. So when we fall ill, we always go to doctor to take medicines. So doctor gives us capsules or injections of medicines like penicillin. So these types of medicines, they destroy the pathogens. What are pathogens? Pathogens are disease producing microorganisms. They are also called as germs. So these medicines, they kills the pathogens or retard or stops their growth. So these medicines which stops the growth of microorganisms or kills them, such medicines are called as antibiotics. So antibiotics are produced with the help of specific microorganisms. So they are useful to cure diseases like tuberculosis, typhoid, cholera, etc. So which were previously considered incurable. These antibiotics they become useful to cure our deadly diseases. Not only the diseases of human being, they are also useful to cure the diseases of animals. So these antibiotics, they are mixed with their food and then they are given to the animals, so to cure their diseases, while plant diseases can also be controlled by antibiotics. So it means these antibiotics are very useful for curing diseases, but they can be harmful if we used without consulting doctor or physician. Doctors. Hence, a course of antibiotics should be completed strictly following doctor's prescriptions. In fact, we should not take any medicines on our own to treat diseases like body aches, ailments like body aches, headaches, common colds, etc. Nowadays, many times we heard the name vaccine. So, what is vaccine? Vaccine is a preventive measure which is given to the person before the onset of disease. This vaccine is produced in a laboratory with the help of microorganisms. So, these microorganisms, they gives us immunity against a particular disease. If we have vaccinated against any disease, our immune system, that is resistance to that disease, increases. So the possibility of contracting that disease is greatly reduced. So microorganisms, they are also used in the process of tanning of skin, production of ropes, and then strings from agave. Agave is a plant. Some microbes use oil for their growth. Such microbes are used to clear a layer of oil floating on the surface of ocean or lake formed due to leak or spill, that is to clear an oil slick. Farm waste, human urine and feces, wet garbage, etc. is collected and used in a biogas plant. For what purpose? To produce biogas and fertilizer. How biogas is produced? When these waste materials are collected in a biogas plant, microorganisms act on them and methane gas is produced in that plant, which is stored in the dome shaped part. Then it is transported to our house with the help of pipes. Understood? Now we'll see the biogas plant. See, this is a biogas plant and we can see dome shaped structure. From there gas collected gas is transported. Okay, students? Students, till now we learned useful microorganisms. Now there are some microorganisms which are responsible for different diseases. So we'll learn about them under the heading harmful microorganisms. Do you know one thing? What happens to the sweet meat or bread forgotten in a lunch box for 3 or 4 days? So this sweet meat or bread, when it is forgotten in a lunch box, we see fungus grow over these foodstuffs. So if jar of pickles, jams are opened for after a long time, a round layer of white scum or black particles may appear to have formed on the surface. So this is nothing but fungus, mold or mucor. Black particles means mold. Mucor means thready, white particles. So in summer, milk and meat get spoiled quickly because fungus grows quickly on moist and stale food. So this spoiled food stuff becomes a little bit poisonous because if we consume it, we suffer from diarrhea or loose motions. So we just throw away these foodstuffs. Understood? So this disease produced because of that foodstuffs, spoiled foodstuffs, we say food poisoning, because these foodstuffs, we use these foodstuffs for nutrition. But when microbes, this fungus, when releases toxic materials like enterotoxins into the food, then these toxins spoil the food. So when we eat this spoiled food, it can cause loose motions, vomiting, or sometimes diarrhea. So to protect ourselves from this disease, we just throw away the spoiled food. So how to protect us from toxic effect? So do one thing, always eat fresh and properly covered food, then drink boiled water, then hold a handkerchief over your mouth and nose when you cough or sneeze, and don't allow garbage and water to accumulate around your house. So when a person who is suffering from flu or cold and cough, when sneezes or coughs in open, then what happens? That germs spread and the person who breathes in suffers from the disease. If a garbage is accumulated around our house or water is accumulated or stagnant water is there, then mosquitoes may grow there. These mosquitoes are carrier of different types of pathogens. So when they bite, that pathogens enter into our body and we may suffer from malaria, then swine flu, and other diseases. Students, do you know one thing? Almost 80% of all diseases they occur due to uncleanliness. So when we keep our surroundings clean, when we avoid litter and disposing garbage properly, then then also defecation in the open place, when we avoid it, what will happen then? It will help to stop the spread of diseases. So Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is a national movement which started several years ago to increase, for what purpose? To increase awareness about public hygiene. Nowadays, we are also following certain rules. We are keeping some distance uh, with our friends, using masks. For what purpose? To stop the spread of corona. Because we know that when a person suffering from corona sneezes or coughs in open, then what happens? That pathogens they come out, and when we breathe in, then what happens? We may suffer from that disease. So to stop the infection, we have to use mask, we have to keep distance, so it will help to protect us from that harmful effect. What are pathogens? Pathogens are disease producing microorganisms. We call them as germs also. They are present in water bodies. When they are present in water bodies, what happens then? How they enters in water bodies? With sewage and dirt from our surroundings. And in food, when food is left uncovered in unhygienic condition, at that time pathogens enter into the food. And when we consume such contaminated food or water, then what happens? We may fall ill. How water gets contaminated? When pathogens enter into water. At that, how food gets contaminated? When pathogens enter into food. At that time, food gets contaminated. Then so these pathogens they enter in our body and grow in alimentary canal, and then we may suffer from typhoid, cholera, hepatitis, gastro, etc. So these diseases are foodborne or waterborne. There are certain diseases they are airborne. When person coughs and sneezes in open, then our respiratory tract may get affected due to the entry of pathogens through that air when we breathe in. So which diseases spread through that air? Common cold, cough, diphtheria, pneumonia, and tuberculosis. Nowadays, corona also. And when pathogens enter through mosquito bites, we may suffer from malaria, dengue, elephantiasis, yellow fever, chikungunya, Zika fever. Understood? So here the pathogens enter into mosquito body, they do not affect mosquito, but when that mosquito bites us, they enter in our body and cause disease. Here are certain methods to prevent the diseases. What we have to do? We have to do very easy methods. We have to check water tank and the water in it is whether it is clean or not. So mosquito cannot breed in that water tank. We have to also check water tanks and toilets in the school whether they are clean or not, and then water that accumulates in pots, tires, cans, etc. around the house, whether it is drained or not. If it is accumulated, then surely mosquitoes will breed there. And water storage containers, whether they are cleaned regularly, whether they are covered properly. When they are not covered, then mosquito may enter there. So what exactly happens when we have fever? So the body temperature of healthy person is about 37 degrees Celsius. So when microorganisms enter in our body, then our immune system starts acting and body temperature rises. So this destroys the microorganisms, and the site of an injury also feels warm for the same reason. Here our immune system it raises the temperature when we at the site of the injury, and when the temperature rises there, due to that temperature, pathogens they dies. Understood? In this way we prevent from harmful effects. Here we are finishing our part harmful microorganisms, their effects also, and also we are finishing our lesson. So in next session we'll write question answers from our exercise. We'll meet in next session. Till then, bye.